Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. All right, let's go. This has started. The train has left the station. Let's get to it. I can't wait to introduce my guest today. We chatted a wee bit ago, and I remember it's sometimes you're like, oh, what guest is that? No. I know exactly who I was talking to today. I was excited this morning, and man, let me tell you about him. He is a serial entrepreneur. He can't help but create businesses like Johnny Appleseed, just dropping businesses all over the place, all over America. He is a growth leader and thought leader. What is that? He's weaving marketing, sales, weaving them together and making this amazing blanket of revenue, right? Like he's growing things left and right. Old school, you've got the background in SEO, AdWords, biz dev, nonprofits. Guys even adopted a highway. Without further ado, Chief Growth Officer, Managing Partner at RevenueZen, Ken Magma Marshall. Welcome, sir.
Casey, thank you so much. That was my adrenaline is pumping already this morning.
Yes.
And there's a lot of caveats there to all of that, but I'm going to say that might be the best intro I've ever heard. So,
well, thank you. But you earned it. You did it. And so, without further ado, I got to pass you this thing. It's heavy, but clearly you work out more than I do. Okay, you got it. Take Thor's hammer. Okay, double-handed. Nice grab. We like to, give point scores on grabbing Thor's hammer. Take Thor's hammer, smash for me some kind of myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
Yeah, I mean, I've been preaching this from the rooftops for years now. It's on our website in my marketing thesis. It's on LinkedIn. And it's even, it's old, right? It's nothing new, but it's still pervasive. And that is this. You've heard of if you build it, they will come as a strategy, which isn't a strategy. I hear the same thing in our space for if you blog it or, if you implement some kind of tactic, that all of a sudden that'll equate to customers and revenue. And it's silly and a waste of time and money.
Like if that's you do it, they will come,
with
right?
My worthy hammer.
Yeah, you smash that thing. So we're just going to build stuff and then magically it'll just work. Is that where all of this sort of mind warp?
Yeah. No, you don't need to understand your customers. You don't need a product market fit. You don't need a strategy. You just need to create some blog posts, right? And that's all people need to give you money.
Yeah. Or now you can skip a step. You can have Chat GPT create your blog post, and then you can go on vacation and let AI just attract your customers for you.
Yeah.
What do you think?
That would take a whole podcast for me to explain like prompt engineering and the QA process for Chat GPT, but we could dive into that too.
Well, we'll just clear our calendars, man. But talk to me about this. Where does this myth come from? Why are we so in this loop of if you do something, if you're busy, don't worry, trust the results will come?
Yeah, I mean, we're being cheeky, but I'll be a little bit more generous and say, I think that for the majority of people who aren't like hucksters and intentionally being, dumb or scammy, I think the majority of like marketing professionals, or maybe even if you're an early stage founder, your resources are spread thin, your time is spread thin, and you don't know what you don't know. So you hear that there's this channel called search and big companies have taken advantage. Monday.com just went public with it. And you're like, oh, great. They have some content. I see some blog posts. If I can do that and go raise my Series A, then great. So I think it's more of just like a bit of ignorance in the truest sense of the word and just not having context. So I think they're like, this is cheap. I can write some blog posts perhaps instead of spending all this money on ads or outsource SDRs. Let me just start there, and lack of education. So I'm going to say that's why I think that it happens more often than not.
So we didn't know better. We didn't hear the podcast, but now that we've heard the podcast, now that we're here, how do we turn it around? And you kind of alluded to this too, like, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. What if it's not good enough just to say, just to do, just to wing it or have AI try to do it for you? What is your recipe, your growth recipe?
Okay, so I'll start off looking to the camera, directly talking to you, each and every person in the
That's
audience.
scary.
This is what our North Star, so to speak, as a business. You might have different goals of user acquisition, but for most of our clients that are B2B, right, it's customers and revenue, and maybe things like net net profit. But in the beginning, it's customers and revenue. And so, what I would say to you is, why would you focus on production or keywords or clicks or impressions on Facebook or MySpace, back in the day? I heard that a lot. Instead, wouldn't you align your marketing efforts to revenue and sales and customers? So that's thing number one. That's the overarching theme, is like everything that you should do should be geared and mapped towards that. But as far as like the basic principles, I think it's fairly simple. The tactics are going to be different, but here's the outline. Number one, analytics and attribution. There are some free tools, there are some paid ones. That's out of scope of this conversation. But depending on your situation, go install some basic ones. Google Analytics, Google Search Console that tells you keyword volume and traffic data. Get some conversions, maybe HubSpot, their free plan, so you can see when somebody submits a form. Know who's using your site, how and when they convert. That's thing number one. That's the most important step, actually, because you can have a winning campaign, but if you don't know what you're doing or how you're spending your money, you're likely to make the wrong decisions. Thing number two, I would say, is understand your audience's jobs to be done versus demographics like their height and whether or not they like Pepsi or Coke. I think personas have gotten, they're cool and interesting and I guess useful for certain people, like a UX designer. But more than anything, does the VP of marketing, is their job to be done to get rid of this function on their plate and sleep better at night? Is it to show their executives an ROI? That's what you're solving for. So understand that. Jobs to be done of your target ICP and your audience. The third thing is researching relevant metrics. Guesses don't work unless you're like me and you've been doing something for 8-10 years and you have some intuition. I still don't guess, so neither should most people. So when I say relevant metrics, if you're doing an SEO campaign, know what the search volume is for your most lucrative keywords. Don't just start writing, right? Second to last, understand what a buyer's journey actually is. So awareness, comparison, decision, right? Loyalty, that's the basic. There's other ways, but that's the basic. And then think about what kind of content you need to give that person to move them through that buying process at each one of those stages. And then lastly is just—
Sorry, real quick on that. Can you go back through your stages
go
again?
ahead.
So see if we're on the same page with the stages or the journey.
Totally. Just the most simple one that I've heard that most people understand is like awareness. Somebody needs to learn about what the problem even is. They don't even know if they understand the problem. So that's why we have like a B2B SEO guide, right? It's basic for me, but some people don't even know what it is, let alone buy it. Then it's comparison, right? Do I need this solution? So I do need a consultant or an agency or a tool, maybe a platform can help me with SEO. And then it's decision. Okay, I know that I want a vendor, but which vendor and which solution do they offer that I can afford or have the resources for? And then keep them coming back. So maybe email marketing, that you update them on industry trends. That's loyalty for a product company. They have support sections, so that kind of stuff.
Okay, nice. So we got to understand
the only other thing. Yeah. So the only other thing I would say is just topical authority and overall, like, relevance of the company. And all that means is like, is your business seen as being trustworthy by search engines and your users? Just like you would offline. People have billboards, they have a storefront that looks professional. Their employees wear certain things when you walk in, they make you feel good. You need to present that similar front online. So a lot of words, a lot of overarching themes, but that's the overall strategy. The tactics are what I think we can dive into.
Oh, hell yeah. And just to make sure I got this list, because I love this is like golden list right here. 4 was understand the journey. Is 5 the topical authority, or was there something else after the journey?
Yep. So audience, jobs to be done, researching the right metrics to gather intelligence, understand the content to help the journey, the buyer through their journey.
Okay.
Building that topical relevance and authority, and then the right tactics is what I would say.
Okay, gotcha. So understanding the journey is also in the context of the content that you're going to supply along that journey.
Exactly.
Got it. And then number 6, now we're actually doing tactics, right?
Which is everyone's favorite place to start.
Yeah, right. Tell me about, like, people. We just start there, and then we try to work our way back into all these other things. And I don't know, ever doing analytics backwards is next to impossible. You can't track if you didn't track and set it up to track the beginning. You're up a river kind of thing, man.
Totally.
Where do you see the most mistakes happening?
That's a really good question, and I think we already touched on them, but just to make it like super clear and concise, starting off out the gate with tactics without any intelligence. So
True.
you could get lucky with some channels. I think that you can really, you can get lucky with a viral moment on TikTok. Their algorithm promotes new people intentionally to make it sticky, right? So you could just do whatever you want, no strategy, and potentially succeed in a big way.
Right.
I think search has one of the biggest lifts in the beginning as far as knowledge gap and needing a pretty consistent strategy over time to work for most companies, particularly if they're starting out. So that's why for different channels, I'm not saying this is for everybody. It's just if you want to do search well and inbound well, starting off with a tactic is usually going to be a poor ROI of your time and money.
Gotcha.
The second thing I would say is not treating SEO or content as a channel. So I've seen this. Like we hired some person on Fiverr to do our inbound for us. That is an impossible job for a human to do. Literally nobody, not myself, you couldn't even clone 3 Kens and have them do your entire inbound marketing function. So that person is just, there's a misalignment there that it's a channel. Each one of those is its own channel, just like you would do paid or social. So that's thing number 2. Thing number 3 is misalignment from leadership on what it is. So what it is in terms of like why we're doing search, how it's going to impact the bottom line, and how long it's going to take. I see that all the time. Like our board's looking for some metrics for the second quarter. They started 3 months ago. They've never done it before. What's our revenue look like now? Our revenue sourced from organic? I'm like, that's not what we talked about with the VP marketing, but the VP of marketing, they're breathing down their neck. So misalignment. And then I would also say there's a mismatch of people in certain industries that are more competitive against maybe bigger or better competitors or more specific areas that they misunderstand the budget allocation it's going to take for them to succeed. Not everybody. There's obviously quick wins, especially for bigger companies that are more established. But I see a lot of misallocating of budget. And some people I would advise they should have never even spent money on the channel in the first place.
Right.
Those are the big ones.
I haven't had a more clear presentation of like, this is what you need to do. And it's not saying it's easy, right? There's still 5 major categories before you even get started. And there's a lot of ways it can go wrong. But what's great about it is at least it's there in front of you and you can work the steps. Do you often encounter people that are at different stages along that path? Some are still wrestling with number 1. They're still trying to get those analytics fixed, and other ones have that fixed, but they haven't done the research.
Yeah, well, let's give people maybe some hope real quick. If you look at the ROI over time of different marketing channels, I think email was still first, referral, word of mouth. And then I think it was between social and organic. But the point is that if you look at like over time, paid or outsourced SDRs, maybe like you're going to have this great like lead increase, but then the cost per acquisition is going to maybe get stagnant, more expensive, or even decline. Whereas organic tends to build upon itself and even, exponentially increase over time. And so that's why as a long-term investment, it's a good channel to add to your stack. So people out there, it is difficult, but if you want to go on the journey long-term, it tends to be worth it. So I'll start there. But in terms of analytics, what we find is that folks have had some kind of setup. So maybe they have a Google Analytics or a Mixpanel or whatever, but they don't use it because it's unclear and there's no insights coming from it. It's just they have a bunch of data and they aren't data scientists, they aren't analytics specialists, so their brains are just scrambled. They have no dashboard. Gotcha. So there's those folks who are, that's good. We can take that historical data, like you said, you can't invent historical data, and then make sense of it to make good decisions. And then there's people in the camp who are just flying blind. Again, they're creating content because somebody told them to, or there's an initiative from above, or it's the cool, trendy thing. And we have to start from scratch and just take it apart and say, why did you even start making this stuff? We might have to delete some of this stuff. It's really tough. We have to look at, implementing the right solution for you, get a CRM in place. So some people don't even know where their customers came from or how long it took to become a customer. So we start from scratch.
It makes a ton of sense. And we touched a little bit on this earlier, not to open Pandora's box, but it's already open. The idea of the Chat
Do it.
GPT, like
Yeah.
a lot of people hyping it up. And, there was this band called New Kids on the Block decades
Oh
ago,
yeah.
and everyone liked
Yeah.
them. So I decided I wasn't going to like them because everyone else liked them, and I can't quite figure out. I mean, I have asked a few questions of, and it's not even a great name either, ChatGPT. I mean, come on. But what's your
Yeah.
take on it? How does this affect marketing?
I'll say maybe a few big things that I believe, and then you can lead me to the promised land about which thread we pull on. But the few
Sure.
things. One, ChatGPT in the context of innovation, if you study history, is nothing new. Books. People thought they were going to erode attention span and intelligence. They did, I guess, a little bit. Attention span is not as concrete, but that's because
Right.
I don't need to. And I don't want to have to memorize 100 books because now I can, have access to millions. And
Right.
intelligence, that's not been proven at all. So I think this is not a new thing. I'll put it that way. Thing number two is I think people should embrace Chat GPT for what it's intended for, which I'll get to in a second, but they shouldn't be fearful of it. I think the two biggest reasons I've heard for why people don't use Chat GPT are either like a straw man argument. They'll say, well, this content isn't the same as a subject matter expert, so therefore I shouldn't use it. That is a black and white fallacy mixed with a straw man argument, right?
Right.
It's like a double fallacy. The point is not to be the solution, it's to augment human intelligence and get rid of menial tasks. That's the point of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and big data. Anyway, the second thing is that people are afraid that it will replace them. And again, some of them are right. They have the right to be afraid, but the answer is not to not lean in. It's to become the prompt engineer, so to speak. If you're a writer, it's to become a prompt engineer and writing content director versus somebody who just produces words for a fee. And that's a scary thought. I even had a scary thought about shutting down my SEO agency, the one prior, when certain tools came out from technical SEO. That used to be our bread and butter. You could charge $5,000 for a tech audit. Now it's zero for a tech audit. Tools do that for free, and they tell you the
Wow.
fixes. So I
Jeez.
think people should lean in. They should evaluate their own fears and apprehensions to make sure that they're valid. And they should play around with it to test how it can augment themselves, earn more money, or be more efficient or effective. So that's how I feel about it. I've used it since it started. I've used AI tools for 2 years now to write content and everything in between. And there's a middle ground between human and them and winning.
So, and you've used it then to augment. So, what gave you a nice solid base of a bunch of paragraphs, and then you're tweaking them to make them on brand, or how have
Sure.
you used
Some
it
use case.
successfully?
Yeah, some digital marketing use cases that people will find fascinating. So obviously, I've written full articles, like up to I think 6,000 words for one of my personal sites. But many, 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 many articles I've published with ChatGPT and other AI tools. It's the best at understanding context. The second thing that's more interesting, me and my wife are going to buy a house soon. I asked it to help write me a formula to build a mortgage forecasting calculator with I think 12 or between 12 and 15 different variables, and then write that formula for me. So that's the thing. You can build tools with it. It can write code. I asked it to, I wanted a PHP template for an author, a better author template in WordPress. And I described the information I wanted on the page. It wrote the HTML, it wrote the PHP, wrote the CSS. I just gave it 3 prompts. So this is all in 3 prompts or less, by the way.
Wow.
It built me a content strategy for a fintech company, including distribution channels, how to calculate CAC payback period, how the CEO should talk on LinkedIn, what top 20 topic ideas for me in every stage of the buyer's journey. And then lastly, I would just say I ideate, I guess, would be to create topics. So I gave it a URL and said, based on this URL, what would be some good topics for this person or this website? And it had a list, and I was like, okay, great. Now make it wittier. And so I don't even have to go look at the website. It can sort of be my research assistant. Those are a few use cases that come to mind for folks like us.
Wow. It gave you a whole content strategy.
Yeah, in 3 prompts. And I mean when I don't mean like a few paragraphs. I'm talking everything from how to build an audience persona, because I was very specific in my questions to it. It gave me a potential persona for the fintech company. It gave me topics. It gave me keyword targets. It could group you know what I mean? Like distribution channel, which analytics tools to use. It's fascinating if you understand, again, good prompt engineering. You can do a lot of cool things.
Wow. Prompt engineering becomes the
And I'm
thing.
overusing that term. It's a technical term. I think that's what we're talking about at the end of the day is
I think so,
training
yeah.
the data even within the tool. Yeah.
So you designed the prompt. Talk to me. What kind of finesse did you do? Did you do afterward? You had the output. Were there some things that you needed from your own experience to tweak and change? And generally speaking, what kind of things were there that you knew that like you just knew from experience that maybe wasn't displayed there?
Yeah. So the first is intelligence in, intelligence out, stupid in, stupid out. That's the
Yeah.
first principle of Chat GPT. You can't say, write me a blog post about SEO and expect it to be good. So I'll start there with the inputs. You have to have context to even know how to prompt it for it to be good in my experience. The times where I've been lazy in my prompts, I've gotten the worst results. So that's thing number one.
Well, okay.
Be
So on
intentional
that,
and yeah. Go
so
ahead.
just straight out asking, okay, just write me this topic, and it's going to give you this like kind of like hogwash answer.
It'll be all right. It may even be decently factual, but I can almost guarantee that it's going to be somewhat plagiarized because the point is not to be it's not a tool that was meant for all these things. It just understands a lot and can help you. And so people think that that's this amazing, beautiful final project, at least that I've talked to, and it's not. So
Right.
instead of saying, write me a blog post on SEO, I'm like, I'll say a lot of verbs. So I'll be like, act like you're a New York Times writer for the digital marketing column, and what I want is a informational but witty, 1,000 word piece on these 5 topics with an intro and a conclusion. And what I want you to do is after you're done, make sure to cite the sources if you grabbed any factual information. Right. So that's a basic prompt that I would give it to get the first draft of the process. So does that make sense for the input
Totally.
stage?
Yeah.
Okay. Next is like what I consider the refinement, which is assume that that's going to be 40 to 70% of your end result, never 80 or above.
40.
For most people,
40.
I'm still getting used to it myself, but most people aren't even, they're not going to touch a prompt like that when they're first using it. And so what I would say then is start to analyze like, okay, is there something that maybe I need to redo that first prompt? Maybe I asked it to do witty and it thought that I meant funny. So I actually need to say be cheeky or sarcastic. Those words have different, maybe I need to present an example. So like take a website, a piece of content and say, mimic this that I like. And it can remember. Okay. So you're refining now and maybe say, take that third bullet, that third section that you did and now rewrite that with more facts and information. So you have to refine a little bit. And you can get as specific and ridiculous as you possibly can. And there's a limit of what I think it can understand, but the limit is usually not what I assumed at first. It can go much deeper. So I'll stop there. That's like refinement. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense, man. That's great. I appreciate that because it really helps me sort through a lot of the hype.
Yeah.
And it's not magic. That's a very, very clever, and I mean I can see your technical background. I can see those things going into that prompt to be able to elicit a much better response than just, hey man, what's up? You like literally have to coach it. And it makes sense. Makes a lot of
Coaching it.
sense.
Think of it, it'd be like a really good executive assistant or a growth marketing coordinator. You
Yeah.
don't expect them to build the strategy or understand the company's, business model forecast, but they
Right.
can get you some documents. They can help get ideas. They're smart. They're willing to help. That's at least at this stage in its infancy, what I think Chat GPT is. And then to that point, as a segue, like the last step is QA, quality assurance, which again, I see a lot of skipping steps. Like these tools are available, but checking to see like how human the output is. And the point is not to game the system. Again, it's to please people and solve jobs to be done. So you want to see how human it is so that humans can read it, not to game the system. It'll help your SEO performance, but the point is to solve for the humans. To check it through a plagiarism tool like Grammarly, maybe the syntax or the how it sounds in Hemingway for free. Having a subject matter review it for factual accuracy. Those are the ways that you can ensure as the last step to make sure that the content is not only going to perform well in search, which is a bonus, that real humans can consume it, be delighted by it, and help solve their jobs to be done and move them through that journey. That's how I think about Chat GPT, and I think it'll really change. I think this is the inflection point. I think there'll be different tools. Google's going to come out with Sparrow pretty soon for the public. But I think this is another inflection point in our history of like digital marketing. I really do.
Yeah, it really starts to seem like that. And I start seeing, courses being taught in schools to understand even those 3 steps you've outlined, but then, practical, get people practicing it and working it and workshopping it in school, ideally. Or, what'll happen is 10 years from now, schools will catch up and they'll start teaching it.
Right.
We'll be on to something else.
Totally. There's I saw a couple of like tools for teachers to help like catch plagiarism. I'm like, I think again, we're fundamentally misunderstanding. Like this isn't going away. So how can we help teach students in the context of these tools to test their own performance versus try to block and tackle?
Right.
Like artificial intelligence. Yeah. Good luck.
And I just envision the prompt then becoming, write this paper for me in a style based on my previous paper, and make sure that Grammarly doesn't have any issues. Make sure no sites will be able to flag this for plagiarism.
Or like write it in a way that I'll get a B- so my teacher doesn't figure it.
Right? Don't write an A. Write me a B-. Include an occasional spelling error and grammar mistake.
Bro, I am telling you, that's a thing. That's an exact like. Not that you'd want to do that, but it's funny. Like when I'm just joking around, I'll be angry with it versus polite, and just sort of see if there's like a difference in output. But saying, make a few mistakes, like give me 4% mistakes grammatically on purpose. Its grammar is usually pretty good, so It can do that.
Wow, yeah. It reminds me of the old SEO game, right? Well, old but still new. Make a change, Google makes a change. SEOers make figure out a hack, Google updates it. Figure out another hack, Google updates it. So it'll be a bit of a cat and mouse game with teachers and papers. But I hear you on the inflection point for sure. So
but I think it's good stuff.
Yeah, I'm coming around to it. It sounds.
Well, how do you feel about it? Yeah, I'm interested in that now. I know this is I'm the guest, but how did you feel, or how do you feel about it?
It was fun. It was fun, right? So that immediately makes me wonder if it's sus, as my son might say. But it's like, is it more than fun? Is there some practical? And then if the output isn't really there, I think I've heard this other places too, where people just assume the output, the authenticity. They assume the accuracy is there. When it's really not, but understanding it's not. And to your point, someone new at the company and you're just coaching them through writing, it'd be the same process. But at least you have something written. And sometimes just getting that first 40 to 60% there.
Totally.
It's half the battle.
It's helping you start.
Yeah. Helping you get started and then go knock yourself out and do a bunch of editing. I just remember when I wrote my book, I was able to talk it out, but then I had to go back through and look through all that stuff and then refine. And I found out actually that I had 10,000 words too many. They're like, you're contracted for 35,000. You have 45. So you could pay us 25 cents a word, or you could reduce the size. And I did the quick math and I was like, I think I'll reduce the size. But that was a good process. Actually, refining was a good process. It made me have to bring things into a clearer scope. So there might be something there where we get a big download from an app like this, and then our refinement is the value.
I think that's exactly right. Like directing and refining and making sure that the quality assurance is there. And which is interesting because I don't know, I feel much better when I'm having fun and getting to be creative. And I don't know about you, but maybe I'll get your thoughts of like using my brain and thinking of a strategy and interacting with other people and being creative versus sitting and clicking on stuff and moving code around. I used to have to, used to have
Yeah.
to pull up a blank document and type in like the HTML stack, the head, the body,
Caret, yeah,
type it in.
HTML, open, yeah, head, title.
And I'm like, we could drag and drop stuff in
Yeah.
an editor. And every developer was like, this is dumb. WordPress and Webflow are stupid. And it's like, bro, now you can be the director of a user experience for like, and if you're good, the same amount of money instead of having to pull up documents and type out. Like,
Yeah.
I just don't even see that as being fun. And even the old money that I may have lost from like a tech audit, I hated doing those things. So
Right.
forced me to think in a different way and consult and advise in a different way. So I don't know. Have you felt that with like technology more of like, do you have more, animosity towards it? Or do you think like I do that it's sort of freed my perspective in a way and forced me to use my brain more instead of just my hands to make money?
Yeah, that for sure. Right. Now you hear the things that, people used to complain that they let cars on the road and they would scare the horses, and, and now it's like, do we allow horses on there or not? They'll scare the cars. Right. So full circle. Yeah. I don't know. I hear you though. It's good to. I'm kind of a late adopter though. I think it's Apple's fault. I'm just gonna blame it on Apple because you get that update on your phone and then nothing works and they ruined your favorite app and then suddenly your browser the browser URL bar is on the bottom and it's like I didn't ask for
Ridiculous.
that. How do I get rid? And then
Nobody.
everyone's Googling how, or now Chat GPT. How do I get rid of the browser off the bottom of my screen? Please, for the love of God. So sometimes I'm a bit of a laggard with tech, where I'm like, I'll let somebody else beta test the iPhone 13,000, but then I'll kind of sneak in there after a little bit,
After the bugs are gone.
Yeah, yeah. After the semicolons that people forgot are now put back in. And then everything just compiles beautifully. But I don't know. It is fun though being on the front of things. Podcasting is that. Chat GPT is
Sure.
that. So we'll see what happens. I wanted to shift a little bit though. Man,
Yeah.
you know so much and you've done so much and you have such a clarity and you're able to communicate with that clarity. Really, who are you? Who are you, right? Like who is this guy that I'm talking to that knows it? Are you Chat GPT? Are you like a skin? Are you like a Chat GPT skin? Am I talking to like a?
They're on to us.
They're on to it.
No.
The computer starts powering down. Oh,
That's an interesting question, right? Because I mean, yeah, let's sort of like take a couple of big steps back. I've always been really interested in like exploring the like upper limits of my potential and the world around me and people around me, which is very overly philosophic. And I apologize, but it is true. Like I have an endless desire to seek out like new things, like even reckless, like with reckless abandon almost. They're not always beneficial. That's so when I say serial entrepreneur, we mean like a few businesses that have made like a few $100s, a few that have made a few thousand, a couple that have made like 6-7 figures. But like, I'm not some millionaire. I need to go start a drop shipping business because I heard about it. I need to go, consult, or I need to go walk dogs on the weekends just because it's another way to make a dollar. Uber, Lyft, I did them when they all first came out, Instacart. And even though I didn't necessarily even need the money or had the time. And so I think that's the thing that I like doing the most. And it's why Chief Growth Officer is my title.
yeah.
I've always wanted to just explore. And, there's many more. Like I think even talking about digital marketing is a privilege because when I went to college, I was going for sales and business development.
Wow.
But I ended up like winning this sales competition, and I was talking to Herman Miller, the people that make those like big executive chairs.
Chairs.
what you won was one of the big, executive chairs. And so I went to go talk to the guy. And he's like, yeah, so this is our starting salary for the reps, the sales reps. And I just realized, remembering, like, that seems soulless, and I felt very trapped. So I switched my major to this new program that nobody had ever heard of called Digital Technology and Communications, which to this day, our professor still tours around the country teaching other universities how to start similar digital marketing programs. And so, so a lot of luck mixed in there. But yeah, I'm just a guy that likes to explore things, I guess.
Talk to me about, like, little Ken. Did you know that did you ever have a sense that, like, computers and marketing and people, all these things were going to be, I mean, what did you want to be when you were, like, a tiny guy?
So not at all. Like, I didn't know. So marketing, I will say this. I've always had a job and I've always had small businesses. So lawnmower, helping out with paper route, digging, baling hay and, doing landscaping and excavation. At one point, I took some trash from my neighbors, put it on my parents' lawn, not literal trash, but like their little knickknacks. And we used to have these little yard sales, which made a few bucks, right? We could go to the store and buy candy after we were done. And so I have known that. My dad taught me this. I would ask for things, and the normal stuff, he would say, sure, Ken, we'll go to the store, get you some, some food or whatever. But if we wanted something, we would have to work for it. And so I learned very early on that money is exciting, and money gives me my most important value, which is autonomy over my time and what I decide to do and have. And so little Ken was interested in having the things and experiences he wanted to have, and not minding working really hard towards them. So again, a lot of luck and privilege mixed in there. But I didn't know anything about sales or marketing. I jumped into it the same way I do everything else. I was like, this seems like an opportunity. I'm going to do it without knowing much about it. And SEO specifically is funny because I didn't have any idea what it was. I took an information architecture class, which is basically what search engines are. And I was like, oh, I thought there was like magic fairy dust and, Tinkerbell behind it, making everything happen. And as soon as I realized you can manipulate that, I talked to a few people, like adults, business owners. Nobody knew what it was. So I'm like, that's the business I'm going to do, because nobody knows and I'm a pretty good learner.
I love that you talked about how money was exciting, because it is, but also understanding that philosophical foundation of that it gave you the autonomy, gave you the freedom to decide what you wanted to do with your time, which I think is, that's such a elevated concept that I like to think about too. But I think not all of us think about that, right? We're just sort of like one dimensional. Oh, money's cool. We can buy, lunch with it. Sweet. But really what it means is you don't have to go, like pick your lunch off a tree, right? You can like
chase down a gazelle.
Yeah, chase that, right. Yeah, you have to go shoot a moose or something to get it. You can save yourself the 6-hour trip and just get it right now. But then taking that step further, just, you can work for $2 an hour or $6, and then suddenly things feel up. So it's really an interesting concept,
I do. And I mean, I didn't expect the conversation to go this way, but like fundamentally, I could actually care less about money, much to my wife's, discontent, or else we'd make a lot more of it. I've always been more interested in waking up and deciding what I want to do that day. And it's not that I can't work hard. Like the agency took 6 years really to get into maturity, right? So it's not that you can't pursue things that aren't interesting or have hard days and power through it and be gritty. It's just that it doesn't seem like the point of being a human being to me. Yeah. So again, overly philosophical, but I just think if we really analyze it, and for people that are maybe less privileged than me, I don't think that's a bad thing to chew on either. I just think they might have more steps to go because they weren't born in the same amount of, like my parents were pretty well off, but I don't think it harms anybody to think regularly, why am I doing this? And what do I actually want to happen in, whatever time horizon?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool stuff, man. Cool stuff. I got a bit of a hypothetical question for you.
Let's do it.
So I may or may not have a time machine in New Hampshire. I can't confirm it, but there's a high probability it might exist. And I can't tell you I got it, but I have this time machine. So you come visit, right? We get some beer, some lobster, whatever, have a good time. We get to play around with the time machine. And it's a particular kind of time machine because we can go back and visit you a couple days after graduating with that digital marketing degree. And you can talk to yourself, right? You get to meet yourself and hang out for a little bit. What would you say? What kind of things would you tell yourself?
Oh, wow. The first thing that came to mind is something that I chew on all the time because I think something's wrong with my amygdala, I believe it is. Like I just don't perceive risk very well. I don't know if it's personality or, brain or whatever. And so the one thing that I chew on most often is I could save myself a lot of headache if I even stopped for a second to consider most decisions before I make them. I just tend to run headfirst into things, and I'm pretty resilient, I think, so I can figure it out as I go and, make sense of it. But what I did when I graduated was like, I'm just going to go work at this agency and work really hard and do some side projects on the side. And that's going to be my path. And then I'll create this agency. What I think would have been useful was to maybe talk to some agency owners, talk to some people that developed products, because I coded before that too. Like I also didn't just do the marketing track. I did the development track, so I could build like small apps and things and websites and things like that.
Right.
And what if I asked myself, maybe who do I want to help and what kind of product can I build? What kind of service more broadly, rather than I'm going to use this skill as a service and translate that into an agency is basically providing, services at scale. I don't know where I would have ended up. I like my path, but I also think I need to take steps back sometimes. And I've become good at this because I have a wife who's wonderful, who says, "Did you think about this?" And she makes me do that. And so that's the first thing I would tell young Ken is like, consider every path. Just go grab a beer on the beach and consider every path. And second, maybe, is this the thing that you want to do, or are you just excited that it's a new thing? Because everybody has shiny object syndrome to some extent, but for me, that's at the core of who I am. I'm almost proud that I, have started and failed 9 different little micro company, right? But so I would also say, just take a step back and do that as well.
Yeah, I'm with you on the like. Look at that. Wow, I'm really passionate. Let me just do this. And then, man, it would be great to be just a little bit more intentional and think about outcomes. What does success even look like before I get into this? Just a moment, a moment, just like half a millisecond, right? More.
Yeah.
But then deciding, making a little bit more informed decision. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Maybe enjoy life a little bit. I don't know. I like working. I like the work that I do, and it's a weird relationship because I don't think I think it's a small part of being a human out of like call them the 5 buckets, but I would also say maybe go travel a little bit more because that's something that both me and my wife love to do, and I have a good amount, but like outside the country and when responsibilities are low, we don't have a puppy, we're not getting them. So I would say that too. Just take some time to fill the other buckets.
Fill the other buckets. Love it, man. So there's a book on this in your future, no doubt. You got some good.
Well, I wrote a book too, like one summer.
Yeah.
And it's not even good. It's just I did. And it's like those things that I think about.
Was that the marketing one?
No, it's on Amazon. It's called Hermit Crabs Are Smart. It was supposed to be like this metaphor for how, at least from my understanding, I'm not a biologist, but that hermit crabs will do all these interesting things to seek out a better fit home. They'll kind of fight each other. They'll travel over distances. They're always sort of shedding a shell, getting a shell, trading for a shell. And I think that's when I feel most fulfilled. It's in pursuit of a meaningful thing that aligns with my values. And I think that's the game. I don't know about everybody's life, but I think that's the game. And so the book is sort of way back in the day, my stupid thoughts from young Ken on some of those meaty things, those meaty concepts.
Dude, I got to add that to your intro. We got to re-record the intro. We add this book.
Sure.
Man.
But that's what I mean. Like when people ask where to start, I'm like, I don't even know what to say because there's my professional me. There's like the guy who would have wanted to be, a Greek sort of mathematician or a philosopher as a profession, but that doesn't really make a lot of money these days right off the bat. So yeah, it's an interesting question.
Dude, I'm totally going to grab this book. Look at that. All right. And for
Please do,
everyone
and tell me
listening,
what you think.
we'll put a link in the notes for this episode. You can. Oh, it's on Kindle. Look at that. Boom. Go grab it. Go grab it today.
It's free too. Oh,
It's free, bro. I was
It
about to
should
give you
be.
like $12.
Is that the? Yeah, we got to do some price setting experiments, and I'll see what people are willing to pay.
Kindle Unlimited, read for free, or Kindle price 99 cents. Good.
Oh yeah,
Dude, you got to multiply that by times 10. But you have to
I
give our
want to write
listeners
another
one
one.
day.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I'm going to go grab that. Dude, where can people reach out? They want to connect with you. They want to connect with you about your agency, maybe get some growth consulting, or just send you some good vibes.
Yeah, totally. LinkedIn's always fun because I'm hanging out on there. And if you just type in Ken Magma or Ken Magma Marshall into your browser, Google or whatever you use, I'll come up if you're in the US. Or you can just go to RevenueZen.com or type in RevenueZen. We'll pop up. And, all of our consultations, we do these free little strategy roadmaps. It's nothing crazy, but it's just to help you understand if SEO is even right for you and how it can help augment, your organic sourced revenue. And for me, I'll talk about anything. So don't be shy.
Hell yeah. Love it. Dude, so good. Thank you so much for coming on here. It's been fun. We got deep and philosophical. We talked about Chat GPT. We talked about just that foundation and the things you got to do before you even start implementing those tactics. I really appreciate it, man. This has been great.
A lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me. This is more fun than I have on average by a large amount. So thank you a lot.
Cool. Well, hey, I'm happy to do that because, man, anytime I had a great question, it was just me and my, I always call myself like a caveman with a hammer, just being like, oh, what is this? What does this do? But this was great,
Totally.
man. I feel so much more caught up now and not nearly as skeptical of the new kids on the block, aka Chat GPT. So I'm stoked, man. For those listening, if you learned something, and I freaking know you do, and I know you did because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back. So then share this with someone else, 1 person, 9 people, 3,000 people, whatever. That's thought leadership, getting good information into other people's hands. That's helping people out. With that, Ken, you are the man. Thank you again.
Yep. Thanks,
Awesome.
Casey.
Well, thanks, everyone. This has been a crazy cool episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will catch you all next time.